Yeah, that's what I said. I knew this would be a stretch, but we wanted to keep the momentum going. Welcome back to our July session here at the AI and EdTech Mastermind for charter schools. And yeah, this is July 2nd, so I know we do outreach with schools, and I'm just getting all of these emails back that are vacation emails, which is great. I'm glad everybody's enjoying and appreciating that. And a lot of people still registering and wanting the recording. So we need at least enough people to have a little conversation and explore it, and then we can pass along to everybody else what we've been up to, what we're thinking about, and what we're getting into next. So again, I'm Jacob Griscom. I'm our CEO at R&B Communications. We are have been like a broad-based technology provider for over 20 years, but for the last 5 years started focusing in on the charter school space. I took the CEO role 4 years ago now and have really honed in and focusing on serving our charter schools. We had a couple of great Janelle made it right on. We had a couple of great customers in that space. Janelle, you made it. Excellent.
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to have you. I was just telling everybody we're recording and transcribing now, but I said, we actually got a similar number of registrations, but I expect that you will have just enough people to have a conversation today, and then we'll pass it along. So yeah, so saying we're up here in Grass Valley, and we started focusing in heavily on the charter school space 4 or 5 years ago, and we build all kinds of workflow automations, AI integrations, custom software, and custom application builds. And my real kind of passion is thinking about the future trajectory of education. Where are we headed? How does AI fit into that? Our most exciting app is called the Interactive Curriculum Guide. And since we started with a lot of personalized learning charters, that's who we've been developing and building that out with. At this point, it basically indexes learners and uh, finds out more about them. Who are they? How are they? How do they learn best? And so on. So we need to continue to deepen on the indexing side. That can go very, very deep into knowledge nodes and really like getting to know somebody very deeply. But the core mission that is, as I can say it, that I've settled into is to limit wasted human potential. And my thesis on how we do that is by integrating more life education work. So that is the direction of this platform. Right now, it connects thousands of SKUs of curriculum options to students based on the way that they've shown that they learn best, and tries to match make more effectively with all of the different learning paths and options out there, what's potentially best for this learner. But where does it go in the future, beyond K-12, beyond higher learning, into the way that I think that we'll all be engaging with education, which is constantly kind of learning about ourselves alongside an AI companion that's getting to know us and then is kind of acting like a guidance counselor, super intelligence. So it can say, great, now that we know these things about you, here are the learning paths that will help you in the areas of interest. And by scraping job and skills data from platforms like Indeed, we can see what does the world actually need, what are employers asking for, and we can funnel that right back to not only the education and the education providers, but directly back to the users that those opportunities would be great fits for. So that's what I mean by kind of de-siloing, decompartmentalizing life, education, and work to limit wasted human potential. So Ian, you were saying you're with which school again right there in Auburn?
Yeah, Bowman Charter School.
With Bowman, excellent. And what's your role there?
Assistant Principal and Technology Coordinator.
Okay, excellent. And Renee, you're with Ivy Tech.
Learning
no,
Trees
I'm sorry, Learning Tree.
Yeah,
Yep.
TLC. We are a TK through 12 charter in San Diego area and have about 1,200 students, 3 sites, and I do marketing, communication, events for the school. Lots of hats. We all know that in the charter world.
Yeah, and you, Janelle?
I am the executive director for 3 schools that work together in Northern California area. So it's Clarksville Charter School, Feather River, and Lakeview. and we cover about 14, not about 14 counties in Northern California, and it's all the flex-based learning homeschool model. And you got me today, but we actually have a director who does like our communications and websites and all of that, but she's off right now. So I'm joining, and then she would be much more able to speak to a lot of this. And then we do have a director of like curriculum and instruction type of position too that would probably be helpful. So I work with all of them. I know a little bit of everything, but not deep into anything. So I just thought it'd be good to kind of get an understanding of what you're doing, and then probably connect you with different people in our organization who would be better able to speak to different things.
It would be good. I'm glad to have you here today. I'll go ahead and share a screen, show off some stuff, and get into our kind of focal topic for today. So, oh, I wish I could actually pull an image on this. This would be useful. Let's grab this for now, though. This is the organization that Renee was referencing that they've done some work with. Renee, while I have this up, why don't you say a little bit about this organization and how they've supported your school, and kind of what do you see as next?
We just started a partnership with them. We are having them do some professional development in person 3 times throughout the school year to kind of work on some policy development, literally what you're pulling up slides, literacy training for teachers on how to introduce AI to students and talk about responsible use and what we do and do want them to do, and then some guidelines for that, and then just best practices for staff and admin and classified to kind of really help them improve their productivity and be innovative. So we're really excited to. I know we're a little bit late in the game. I attended an expo in San Diego, the Tech Expo that had a complete AI focus, and then there was another one, the AI show that we attended. So just kind of, and then all of the sessions I feel like at CCSA and all of our partner organizations are doing sessions on it as well with legal and stuff. So it's been great to see like kind of a broad view and start focusing in on rolling it out so that we can keep growing in the area.
Yeah, excellent. On that note, yeah, I'm excited. My session just got accepted for CSDC, so I'll be presenting there.
Nice. We'll be at CSDC too. That's great.
That'll be great. How many of you are familiar with integral theory?
Nope.
4 quadrants.
No.
Yeah, this is great. This is fine. This this is just useful. This is the most basic element of integral theory. It's the idea that, as you're beginning to explore reality or any specific topic, you can have a more complete exploration of it if you think about it just as a starting place, at least in terms of the 4 quadrants. So what does that mean? So it looks on the left here, we have the interior, and on the right, the exterior. So interior is all of the hidden inside elements that are like forces that drive us and that we experience on our interiors. So it doesn't show up on the outside, except for it does mirror things on the outside, and the exterior is everything on the outside. Then you have the individual and the collective, and that's what makes up these 4 quadrants. So the I is the subjective. That's all of the things that are happening inside an individual. And I don't mean inside their body, I mean inside their consciousness, their perspective, and so on. It would be everything on the outside of the individual. So that would include their body, but everything out in the world that's an individual thing that you could see, point, touch to, and so on. That would also include individual like actions, things that people could do. The collective interior is really like the cultural quadrant. It's how do our interiors become grouped, and you find tribes and alignment and cultural elements and shared understanding and language and everything else. And then the collective exterior, that's all of our systems. That's systems and networks and technology and so on. And so what we're kind of talking about today is this interior collective, because these things relate to each other. You can have great systems in place, but if the culture isn't there, then you don't use the systems, right? You can have great culture, but if you don't actually like build operational systems around that, it can't advance. It can't grow in the same way. So this I thought just was a good starting place to think like, okay, where are we focused in on here today? And it's going to be this culture, but also, okay, great. Now, what did the systems look like, and how did the individuals operate within it? And then we'll come back to the RB schools because I want to show off the AI chatbot. We've done some early training on it on the EdTech Index. Let's let Ray in here. And so we'll play around with this and see how far along it is so far. This is trained on, how many of you are familiar with the EdTech Index? We're gonna start adding all of our solutions to it as well, but it's basically a big repository of all of these EdTech tools and solutions. And so by training it on it, the idea is that we want to have this chatbot so that you can come and you can ask questions of it related to any specific business problem and so on. And then it will be able to feed back, well, here are some applications and solutions that are related to that, and here's some ways to think about that and so on. So that's one of the pieces. We're also building out a forum connected to the mastermind so that we'll be able to keep all of our resources organized, have conversation threads, and build on those. And then Ray, welcome to the call. I've got you, but you've got some background noise.
Little brother, I guess.
Mute Ray there for now. Okay, so then for today, put this down here. This, our title today is Building Internal AI Culture, How to Equip Your Staff, Create Champions, and Scale Smartly. And so the framework really is named within the title. We're talking about onboarding, champions, and scaling. And I'll be curious, Renee, how much this aligns with the way that you guys have been thinking about it and developing this out, since you've got a leg into building some of this AI culture. But the onboarding part is going to be, how do you start to get people involved? Now, people are all across the board talking to schools. Some people are deep into it. This is true of admins and teachers. I hear more, though, that they're more like teachers resistant to incorporating AI and learning AI. I don't know if that's true across all schools, but that's been my anecdotal hit so far. So the first is onboarding and some tactics around that, building confidence and baseline competence across roles. I mean, give kind of an overview, and then we can dig into these areas. So things like having simple use cases per role, department-specific prompt libraries, kind of a roster of like tasks and skill building and trainings. Then your champions, creating distributed R&D layer by empowering your early adopters, offering opt-in advanced trainings, creating your AI Fellows program, giving visibility for their wins, and pairing admins to pilot these systemic changes. Champions really are the key element within culture. If you don't have people that are enthusiastic about it, skilled about it, actually learning by doing, then there's no like core magnet for people to gel around internally. So you want to find like who those people are and figure out the best ways to encourage, empower, and support them. And then scaling. How do you actually start to build this into best practices, standard operating procedures, organized banks of these things that can be searched and used, and not having to solve the same problems over and over again across multiple people in the same roles. So the other element that that we've talked about in other levels around what are great targets for AI EdTech to some degree, but automations, is this idea of an ABC work framework. And the way to think about that is that your A work is all the high value, skilled, strategic work within a role. So for a teacher, that might be their actual, mentoring in times with students. That's arguably some of the most valuable way that they can spend their time. B work is necessary. It requires some amount of skill, but it's repetitive. Maybe that's a lot of test grading, communication, work samples, things like that. And then C work would be the low value, time consuming, the most busy work categories. And so if each role in the organization can identify for themselves, like, here's the stuff that would be best to get off of my plate. If I could get this off of my plate, then I would be more free to at least do the B work, but the goal is freeing up as much time as possible for their highest value, skilled strategic work for the school. So if you have these for each of the roles, then we have already now a list that we can be like of tasks we can start to tackle, like goals to get to. And you couple that with these meetings. So whether that's subgroups are meeting weekly or every other week or once a month, or collectively the whole organization is getting together on whatever schedule it is, then that's the time where you can sort of refocus and retarget on these. And I like meetings to be, working sessions where it's whatever amount of theory and philosophy and updates you need up front, but then like actually get into doing the stuff, pair people up into their smaller list to make sure that you've got like the people who are more advanced working with more of the just starting, and really gamifying it, seeing how far can we get with this, and come back to our group and look at what tasks we've been able to get through. So Renee, I'm curious for you, for your team, how much has this aligned with the way that either if these meetings haven't started yet, how you've been proposed to like what kind of schedule are you looking at how to build this culture for your school? Oh, and you're on mute right now.
I think we're still working through that. We have a kind of a task force at the admin level. That's our tech director, our curriculum and instruction director, myself, our executive director, and then assistant director to work on, and a teacher, sorry, to work on, like big level planning pieces and timelines. So that's kind of where we are right now. I think just making sure that we're intentional about addressing it, like I had mentioned with students, staff, and even some parents and families, because there's some resistance to it's becoming more common and more popular, but talking about like what are our guidelines and our policies and why it's important to learn and how it's going to be a part of, our future, and that it's a skill that needs to be embraced like any other tech skill. So I think a lot of awareness and assessment, and then just some general educational information, and then like you said, I think just including it in meetings and discussions will be helpful, and then training for staff to kind of make sure we level the playing field so everybody has a base knowledge, and I think we kind of already have an idea of some champions at each school site, so I think that will be helpful as well. So we're hoping to have some panels in the future as well, so that different staff can talk about their roles and how they're using it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll be helpful. So yeah, we're just very early in exploration. I go to other districts. I mean, Poway is leading, and others, schools where they've been, talking about it for 5 years, 3 to 5 years, like you said, are like in the middle of it. And I'm like, wow. So yeah, excited. But
What do you all think are the biggest like obstacles or roadblocks that have to be overcome? Where are the big points of resistance?
I think
that
the perception of it just being cheating and like not, and the environmental concerns, I hear a lot of those two pieces kind of everywhere. So I think, just educating everyone about it's a skill set. It's going to be something that's going to be used. And it just talked about, like you said, like, how do you identify those critical thinking skills that you're using, and ways to, to have it enhance or challenge and help you with some of the more mundane tasks. So I think just also making it commonplace that it's talked about, like, that we do have, like, and it was just funny because initially our principals wanted it just locked down from IT. They're like, nope, like we can't have that. You just need to like shut that out. And we're like, wait. Like, let's have some conversations about that and let's do some trainings on that, because that's, their students are going to use it. So like you want to be teaching them how to use it. So
I've heard that first conversation. What was the second one you said about environmental concerns?
just people talking about the mass amounts of energy it takes to run AI. And there's like a lot of environmental pieces that people are discussing for that piece about just conservation and so it's not nearly as big as the other one, but I have a daughter who's in college who is becoming a teacher. She just got her credential. And they had a whole expo seminar on AI, and that was one of the pieces that they talked about as well. So
interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard that. I guess my immediate thought of like a rebuttal or counterpoint is it's also the tool that probably helps us solve energy efficiency and sort of solve those constraints as well.
And it's like the
it's a
early
little
days
bit
of
of
the
both.
internet.
It's like it
You know,
takes a
when you
lot
have
of energy, but also it's the sort of thing where like you're putting X amount of energy in, but getting how much energy back out of it.
Right. And I think it reminds me of early days of computer usage back, like, when we were first developing supercomputers and internet, and there was like mass infrastructures of like rooms that had, supercomputers in them, and how it just is a matter of evolving and improving tech, you know what I mean? And continuing to adapt and develop. So, look where we are now. I think it's the same kind of thing. Like the more people use it, and they'll work through that piece too. So
Yeah. Any other thoughts, folks, on particular obstacles, roadblocks you think to building AI culture at your schools?
I think just people resisting change in general. Like, I think that there were people definitely in our organization that jumped on it early on, and other people were like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like, what are they doing? We do like a weekly bulletin, and the lady who like puts it all together, she is like super techie, and she was like one of the early, like, oh my gosh. And she made another person's like entry into like Crocodile Dundee style. And so it was like this big thing, like, what is this? This is terrible. So, but I think a lot of people have gotten on board and started to see the value of like time saving, like email responses and things like that. And then I think just, when using it, the reminder or like building the culture of, it doesn't mean that it's always right, or like you still need to double check the work. Like, I think that has started happening where then people go to the other extreme of like, oh, they put everything in, and then you get like some weird emails or some information that you're like, that is not correct. So I think like finding that balance of like educating people enough to use the tools well, on either sides, like not over or underusing, and also like still keeping your brain active and involved, and not just letting the machines do it all. So just kind of like finding that balance and getting everyone on board with that.
Yeah, I can relate. I feel like I've onboarded, I don't know how many dozens of people to say ChatGPT over the last 3-4 years. And it's one of these things where it's very clear that as soon as they get something that's of interest to them, where it went from a concept to like, okay, like what's interesting to you? What do you want to get into? Some things I know about them, some ideas for how to explore it, and some fun ways to play with it. Now it's their new favorite best friend.
Yeah.
So it's like it requires some personal relevant
Mm-hmm.
connection, some personal relevant win, either specific to their role, specific to their life, specific to interests. And then it seems like the momentum is there. It's very hard to then like take their new friend away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's it. I think so many things that are like that, right? That we're resistant to because we've got some concept about it. And then when you get into it, you find out what it is and what it isn't, and then you may have resistance for new reasons or not, but
Yeah.
that does seem like the most basic obstacle or hurdle is going from the idea of to whatever degree I know what this thing is and I'm not interested to
Mhm.
like engagement. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think talking about personal and professional uses too, like you were just talking about interest and how do you use it in a fun personal way and what, versus professional too. Sometimes personal can feel a little less threatening. You know what I mean? Like to start with that conversation of, have you tried it and are you doing this? Before you talk about the professional use.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think professional use, like we started integrating because we do a fall conference every year, and it's either most of the time it's virtual. Every few years we do it in person, but we just started like sprinkling it in and having some of the people who are more comfortable with it do like, because when we do it, we do all like our own staff teaching. And so, I mean, like for example, one of our directors did a whole session on how you can take like kind of related to your curriculum thing. I mean, we have so many curriculum choices and how to take like our course outline and the like curriculum, like table of contents and information and integrate it to like match up with our course outline and then identify like any pieces that are missing, like standards wise that are missing, and then like how to fill like examples of how to fill those. And there was a whole group of teachers that were like totally against using any kind of AI, and they were like, wait, this is amazing. Like I can actually see how this could be so useful and helpful. But they really needed to see, like she did such a great job. She did like a sample and like explain like this is the prompt I would put in and this is what I would tell it. And the teachers could see like how it kept adjusting, because I think that's part of it too, is like just having some tricks of how to like do the prompts or how to get it to like really drill down into what you're looking for. So that was super helpful to just like pick one thing and then really like have them see how it could benefit and save them so much time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Again, another doorway in, if you think through, like if you explain this idea of A, B, and C work, you say like, what is that C work for you in your role? What's the most repetitive, busy work, low skill stuff you're doing over and over again? And
mhm.
then you look at an approach to how can we solve that? Because if that's their pain point, that's their biggest frustration, that's their like biggest morale depletion area,
Right.
and then we get that off their plate or simplify that, or take 90% of the time away. Sean, what school was she with? I'll look again last session, but she's more on the admin side, had 40 something teachers that she has to do the same sort of check-in on over and over and over again. And so we said like that is ripe. That's ripe for a combination of an AI interpretation and then an automation based on its interpretations in terms of the
Mhm.
communication. So it's basically, instead of looking at each of the individual 40 teachers to assess which one do I have to meet at, let the AI do that. Let it look at the criteria that she looks at to determine which one she needs to meet with, light them up, and then run an automation to automatically book them in the calendar, find the shared time, and book it there. And so now you're in the meeting, you know what it's for, but you removed the whatever she said, this is like something like 12 hours out of every week that's going
Oh
into
wow.
that assessment there. It's like, great, that's done, remove that. And so you get a win like that, and now it's really hard to be pessimistic on this tool.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like that angle a lot. ABC work. Think about that for your role. Start kind of asking people that. I would have that as like be like a leading question for your first or next AI culture meeting, or whatever ways that you're exploring that, or forums that you're working on. Because then people will start to really get excited. It'll become immediately tangible. I had an early like marketing mentor, and he had this funny thing about how important it was to get specific as quickly as possible. And the way he would tell me it was just like, think of something white. And he'd say, now think of something white in the refrigerator. And the speed of like how quickly we can go to thinking of something, as soon as you just even narrow it, create a little bit of constraint, it's
Mhm.
there immediately. When it's way broad, it's too big. It's like our minds just don't do a great job seeing the immediate relevant personal possibilities. Ian, I'm curious from the tech side at Bowman, what does that look like in terms of licenses or recommended platforms or coordinating that amongst the staff and the teachers? How do you guys make those decisions, and what's onboarding look like inside just from the tech side of things?
Yeah. The biggest thing is privacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we just, I consider us just starting our journey to AI adoption. We've taken a very conservative approach to what we have experimented with, what we have allowed our staff to use. We're fully aware that our students have been using it, but not using their school accounts or their school devices. But nevertheless, they're using it on their phones, they're using it at home. And so there's been some discussion about what is appropriate, what's inappropriate, how do we address certain behaviors. But from a tech standpoint, my number one concern is privacy and safety, 1 and 2, flip-flopped respectively. But we are looking right now to push for staff adoption. And so we built and adopted an AI policy in the last 2 months. And it's going to be a very, it's a cautious approach. I'll say that. What I want to ensure is that we make meaningful steps. So instead of letting the cat out of the bag and just saying, okay, try to catch it. Try to make use of this. It's going to be more of that deliberate, guided instruction, and really trying to make it sure that we're doing things that is right for us. I think our school and our district has been very tech progressive. We've been early adopters in a lot of things, but this was one specific area where I know that we needed to take a more deliberate and thought out approach. So when I look at what is going to be supported by our school, safety, number one, make sure that it has the appropriate safeguards built in place so that we're not looking at either a data exposure or something where it's putting our staff into a predicament that we can't walk back from.
Right.
And then eventually, I mean, I don't have a time frame for this, but when we do decide to bring it down to the student level, I mean, that's going to be paramount. I keep thinking about the Arthur C. Clarke quote, anything that you don't fully understand is really indistinguishable from magic right now. So everything AI for our staff and our students, after polling our staff, after talking about with our staff, and even my own personal knowledge, I'm humble enough to say, like, I don't understand fully how generative AI really works from a technical standpoint. So yeah, it's a bit like magic. And just like that, I think that there's some real the resistance to change, the kind of the unease of, well, what should we be using this for? I know some people are still very in the mindset that AI is going to take over their job and then they're not going to be employed, even though I think that that's kind of a gross misunderstanding. So circling back to what your initial question is, from a technical standpoint, how do we approach it? Very cautiously. And this is, I don't think that we are alone in how we are approaching this, just based on some of the other conversations I've had with other school districts and other like colleagues in similar positions.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I can see it's a real interesting question. It might involve having to have like custom GPT instructions, and everybody's using the custom GPT, so um, it's gonna create some limits on what can you upload or not upload in terms of student data. And it might say like, great, I can use some of this, but the rest I can't. That'll be curious. We'll see how that all unfolds. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of support and companies and things around that. So there's probably a whole category we should put on the forum so that people can all of our IT directors can have a place where they're getting into the weeds around how they're handling those questions. Around it being magic, agreed. It's even the big LLMs don't know why some of these outcomes are happening, and things happen that are so surprising to them. New like elements of intelligence and reasoning that they weren't expecting that it can do. And then to that third point about teachers' concern about it replacing them, we did a session a few months ago that was called AI Teachers Enhancement or Replacement. And we honed in on the Alpha School and the 2-hour learning models and the Unbound Academy. So Renee, you're familiar with that? Ian, Janelle?
No, I'm not.
Okay, check it out. It's started as private schools out of Texas, but now we have our first, in fact, in Arizona. So starting up here in August, that will be the first public charter following that model. AI teachers only. The first 2 hours of class, they get all of their instruction hyper personalized done through AI. They're like in little pods. They got their headphones on. They're learning at the rate and the speed that's right for that learner in the learning style that suits them best. And they just jam along. What does that mean for the teachers? Well, the teachers have transformed into guides. And so with the rest of the 6 hours of the school day now available, those are all filled around life skills workshops, kids presenting to each other on the projects they're working on and excited about, and like looking for collaborators. They're starting businesses. They are they're basically living this like really exciting, dynamic life there. And they're testing in the top 1 percentile in terms of results. Now, that's the private school results. I'm interested to see how that goes at Unbound, but my theory is that they're also going to perform really well, like upper percentiles. Why? Because you've got a 24/7, tutor that is adapting constantly to you, explaining in the way that you need. It's like if you had like a great teacher personalized to each student, that could then say like that. So you're overcoming the inherent limitations of a classroom environment where all 30 kids are not going to learn in the same way at the same speed. I always thought that's like something to be re-examined altogether. Just the whole concept of why do we put kids together just based on age and geography? It's like, no, it's like interest. That's why that's how we find each other later on in life, and that makes sense to start that way. So so lots of cool thing. I would inject them with those kind of ideas so they can really feel enthusiastic about where this is headed, and show them like, these teachers that are now guides, they love their job and they're so much less busy work and they're not busy grading tests, but they're doing their A work. They're right there with the students, fully engaged, getting to know them, knowing what drives them and helping them to connect to the resources in the community. It is a different sort of role, but it hasn't. So I guess you could say in one sense it took some of their responsibilities, but it didn't take their job.
That's a good way to
So
put it.
yeah, who knows how else it goes, but I think it's good to have like positive counters to the places where fear could like prematurely shut somebody down. Anything else on this topic? We're down to our last 15 here, and there are some things I want to show off and get your input on. But anything else on this topic? What else do you feel like your school really needs? And thanks for that resource, Renee, because I think of us as just, whether it's EdTech, whatever, we're a small team. So we tend to build all of the things in the gaps that aren't being met by other like single focused platforms and that kind of stuff. We build the integrations, the customizations, all the clever little things that schools need to the way that they want it. And so I'm very happy to aggregate all the best resources and just make those available.
I'll share. There was another company, I don't have it on the top of my head right now though, but it was like doing what Ian's talking about, where they like quality control, like they had like a checklist of like certification almost for AI platforms.
Yeah.
That is a company that's working on that and was presenting at several conferences too. That was really interesting.
That's great.
Specifically for
Focused in on the education space. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Pass them along if you
Yeah.
cross paths with them again or think of
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back to that, anything else that would make this really valuable for you and your school? Any other resources or ideas? Again, we've got the forum that we're going to be building out to, and I'll show you the general architecture I'm thinking of for that. And then the chatbot, and then we're rebuilding the RB school site through our CRM so that we can use what's called dynamic CMS, content management. So if Janelle comes, Janelle sees stuff that's specific to Janelle and so on.
Okay.
And to your school like that. So as they log in, you'll have like an area that's yours and then the broader mastermind community here. Okay, so check this out. This is the structure I'm thinking of loosely for the forum. So we'd have one layer that's like the whole mastermind community. We'll have all of our, announcements, replays, events, maybe conferences, anything that's relevant there that everyone can post in. Then all of our general discussion stuff. This is across all schools. A use case library. So you can we can subcategorize those by roles. But just saying like, hey, here's the problem. Here's how I solved it using AI. Here's the prompt or workflow I had. Here was my end result. And then people could, potentially upvote those and comment on those and so on. And then resources and templates. That's going to be all of our favorite applications, SOPs that people are willing to share, onboarding docs. So again, if a school is just getting started, another school is sort of veteran in the space, then they might have a lot to pass along to a new school, and they're just shortening that learning curve. And then also, tapping into, hey, we used this company helped us do this, and so on. So all of those resources. Then the second tier, these school-specific workspaces. So you log in, you get your school, then you can focus on what are the specific project threads, when are our meetings, that kind of stuff. And then some role-based sub-threads, so teachers, admins, tech team, like that. And then potentially even like a user profile layer. So you could have your own bookmarks, the things that you've had a reaction to, and those could just aggregate for you, things that you want to track. So instead of going through the whole thing, if you found something interesting, boom, and now it's on your personal bookmark. So a lot of things that are taken from similar concepts of how these platforms work that we like. And then maybe even a little bit of gamification, we'll see. So within your school, identifying where those champions and leaders are in different departments, and then on the platform overall. So we know who our real AI rock stars are in the charter school community, and kind of elevate and tap on them to the degree that they're willing to be a resource for others. And then this, let's take the last, let's just call it kind of 5 minutes here, and then we can close out the closing thoughts. This is actually fairly new to me. I had this idea for a while, and then Ethan from our team had a little gap. So I said, okay, great, let's go ahead and build that. That would be fun to explore for this upcoming session. So this is on our RB schools site. This is a secondary site that we kind of built, just highlighting some of our applications we've been building, and our school partners and websites and the rest of that, and the mastermind. But this chatbot, these, by the way, these are like our favorite early wins to engage with schools on, because they're so fast and so easy to build now. I don't know if anybody had exposure to what chatbots were like before. You had to think ahead of time, or what are all the like most common questions people ask, and then based on how they ask it in different ways, what are all the variations on that they might ask, and then you had to come up with all this sort of canned answers based on those questions. And if you missed one, you could add it over time. But that took, depending on the complexity of it, that could be hours, weeks, months of work and constantly building this thing out. Compared to an AI trained chatbot, you train it on a school's website, their FAQs, their handbooks, and now you've got a 24/7 attendant there who knows everything you've trained it on, is conversational, can back and forth with your website visitors, reduce the call volume coming in, and also it should improve your overall service to your visitors. So we love that one. That's like just so fast and easy to implement now. Is great. As soon as we started doing that, we're like, wow, this is like 10x more valuable and it's 100x faster to build these things now. So this one's trained right now. We've got it just trained on the EdTech Index. And then I gave Ethan some of my favorite AI application directories as well. And so, yeah, like who's got what's like a business problem or a question or something that's you're looking to improve it at your school? Anybody can say, and we'll just test drive it here.
Mhm.
That's got to be something. Tell me where it hurts.
No, I'm trying to think. Mm. I don't know if this is exactly what you're looking for, but one of the things that we have been trying to work on that this might be helpful with is like different departments, busy times and slow times, and like cross training of staff. So trying to kind of get that all outlined and figuring out like, like enrollment records, those kind, like where are the peaks and lows, and then what staff could be like trained in both, where we could go back and forth instead of over hiring and then having people sitting in a low time while another team is struggling.
So it's like tools to optimize our team's training schedules.
Yeah, and work schedules, like in size of teams.
So now it's only been trained on the EdTech. It's still trained on English language and reasoning and all of that. But in terms of specific stuff, it's saying to optimize team training and work schedules, here are some top tools featured on EdTech Index that can help. So Swivel, Teams plus Robot, and then it's giving some bullets about it.
Okay.
Otis for educators. So they've got something like, I don't know, like something like 2,000 different applications, products listed there.
Okay.
And right now they only have a very basic search. So you would have to know like the right keyword, or you would have to know the right name. But because we've plugged it now into the AI, it's it digested all of those product pages, and it can see now the details of it in a much more usable format here. So Otis for Educators by Tech Inc.
Yeah.
Brisk Teaching, Ori Learning Platform. And again, these bullets, some of these seem more on point than others.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
And
that is one. I mean, in looking at this, that is one of the big challenges is there's so much available, like having the time and to find the right fit for different projects or different needs. So I
yeah,
can see how that can be helpful by having just like summarizing and pulling out some suggested ones.
yeah. Now what would be really interesting, and maybe I'll reach out to EdTech Index again on this, is that if they were to add, like reviews and ratings,
Mm-hmm.
just like in Amazon or anything else, then we could actually get sentiment
Yeah.
and overall numbers of reviews. Like, oh, teachers, yeah, there's a bunch on there, but there's like consistent rave reviews and highest rating for XYZ app.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
That's the next one of our next development goals for the interactive curriculum guide is like that as well, where we want to be able to not just say, oh, hey, these curriculum are like a 95% match for your grade level and this topic and your learning style.
Mm-hmm.
But of those three, this one, like teachers and families, really love. It has consistent ratings. And then the big thing, our big secret thing that we're working on with another school that actually has their big school and they've got enough people to work on it, is they've got 8 people they're working all of the time to not only map out their curriculum, but also the end holy grail, map it to actual like standards outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can begin, because it's hard to do that at an individual level, but in aggregate, if you know, like, yeah, we had 10,000 students that took this course and they had a meaningful improvement on their iReady or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be really interesting because that'll help us all kind of level up and increase the instruction while also making it really personalized. So yeah, feel free to play around with this, check it out. Again, this is sort of beta mode. There'll be lots of fine tuning we can do, but I was like excited. I was like, this won't take us long to build out at least a draft and start playing with it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we've got that now. The forum will be incoming in the next couple months. We'll build it when we do the RB Schools redesign. I always like to ask at the end of these, like, what's a good next session for us? What's in the topic of AI, EdTech, automation, this sort of space? Any other big things that you're thinking about? Topics that would be of great interest that we can center our conversation around. We haven't Ian done one that's really just kind of tech heavy and where we could just bring in all of our best nerds from all of our IT directors, but that could be a direction. Just thinking about things people have mentioned here today. We had kind of a little bit of like a resources dump one. We've talked about it on the instruction side and the question about how is it going to impact teachers' roles and jobs and like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this one was a clear like next one, AI culture.
Mm-hmm.
Any other kind of big categories or topics your teams are thinking of?
Well, kind of related to the beginning, what you were sharing about with Renee's like approaching professional development and making that meaningful and even narrowing down resources. I mean, everyone uses ChatGPT, but like what other resources should we be exploring or would be helpful, moving forward? And then how do we best train different groups of staff, whether it's teachers or, like teams doing ordering or something like that. How can we best utilize different tools and maybe just sharing what other people have used? We haven't used a lot, so I am curious, to see what other people are using and how it's working.
Yeah, that's my hope from the forum as well, that as that starts getting shared and we get some real interesting stuff and popular threads in there, that can inform like, okay, great, this is clearly the next conversation we should be having.
Mm-hmm.
I think one other interesting one is, so like I use it all throughout the day for operations and emails and idea development and the rest of that. But I find it really interesting, especially in voice and conversation mode, to explore it. So like these formats. I feel like conversation mode itself and everything that you could do and the way that could impact things, it could almost be a topic in its own right. Because it brings in, like our lives are so much built around screens right now. And voice mode unlocks that. Like a voice mode plus like a pendant or anything like that. With a pendant, it's like now you've got eyes and ears. So it can take in the environment around it. And then voice mode means that you could be actually like you could be walking a trail in nature, but because you could still be exploring that idea deeply, naturally, conversationally, with audio. Now unfortunately I haven't made use of it in that way enough, but I do love like clicking it on there and just going deep in conversation. I find different things come out. So something about the formats And can you imagine, like right now, schools, a lot of schools which have so many Chromebooks and so many things, they're just built around this. Here's the broader topic I think it could fit into. Tell me if this gets you excited, but like, what are all of the concepts that we could re-examine, that AI can help us re-examine around education? So be very, very open, but like there are these ideas that like when you're swimming in whatever water you're swimming in, and then you just take it for granted. You don't know what new questions you could even ask or what things you could reassess or explore. That would be a very creative session, very sort of mind-opening and expansive to where could education head and what are all of the concepts we could re-examine that AI might help to enable. That had to be this way before, but just like the printing press enabled new things, like what is AI gonna allow us to do that we couldn't do before? What are the big levers and concepts that we can re-examine? That's kind of interesting to me. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like that. I don't even know what I'm missing because I don't even know what there is. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
like I'm sure there's so much we could be doing, but we just have such limited knowledge. And I think like just having the time and making sure you have the right people, working on it too.
Oh, Janelle just froze right there at the end.
Oh, I stopped.
Yeah, you had this little
I
freeze
froze
moment.
or something.
We'll complete the thought and then we can go ahead and
Sorry
wrap
about
up.
that. I don't know what happened. Too many
Wait,
kids
just
in the
yeah,
class.
the very end of your thought. That's what got froze. We didn't
Yeah,
get
I
to.
was just saying, like, just, learning, like, just being a learner and understanding what's out there and how, and then like creatively thinking about how different tools or different concepts could improve workflow or improve student experience or, how our schools are running it. But I think a lot of it is just starting with exploration and learning from other people who are doing different things or know a lot more than I do or my team does, and how we can improve in the whole AI realm.
Yeah, excellent. Great. Well, thank you all for making it right here in the heart of school vacation time. And we'll be back at it in August with some theme kind of around those lines. I'll get the replay up so that other people can see this here soon too. And my email inbox is always open with any ideas, support, resources you need, and so on. Talk to you soon.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.